Okay, welcome back for the second part of One Man's Faith. I'm gonna jump ship a little bit, so to speak. We've been doing a series on prayer. No, excuse me, the names of God. I've got too many things going on. We've been looking at the names of God. As a matter of fact, last week we looked at Yahweh Shalom. Well, we're at a time that I think we need to look at something many of you probably will turn me off about or give me that deer in the headlights look. Yeah, I can see you even through this camera lens. The feasts of God. We are approaching this month the possibility of something dramatic happening. We're in the time. Matter of fact, this Sunday, Rosh Hashanah starts, which is their new year, the hit of the year for our Jewish friends, and then in 10 days will be Yom Kippur, which will be next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, and then the following Sunday is the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, don't get turned off by this, because these are important feasts, and I want to look at the whole gamut of feasts tonight just to show you some things, but they mean something to us. We as Christians, especially in the West, have taken what God has put together and we've thrown it aside and said, we don't have anything to do with this. Well, that's not true. That's not true. We're not obligated to celebrate the feasts, but out of respect and love for our Father God, it wouldn't hurt us to be a part of these feasts, okay? And especially this month, at the start of the Feast of Tabernacles, we will have the fourth blood moon. Fourth in a row as far as we had two last year, we had two this year, we're having two this year. They all fall, well, it was Passover and Passover 14, Feast of Tabernacles 14, Passover 2015, and Feast of Tabernacles 2015. It's a rare occurrence. It's happened a couple of times, several times. One of them was during the Six-Day War in 66, 67. Before that, I believe it was in 1948 when Israel came back to being a nation. And things happened, during that Six-Day War. Well, I'm not saying that there is something that will happen, but there is something based on what has happened might happen. It may not affect us directly as the United States, but it will possibly affect that nation that we should be standing up for, and that is Israel. Okay? So I just want to look at what these feasts mean. These feasts mean something to us. And I want you to see that because it's important. As a matter of fact, the Bible tells us that during the 1,000-year reign, if a nation does not celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles, they will not have rain for that year. That's an indication that we will be celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles. Now you say, but I'm a Christian. I don't have anything to do with that. Well, you do. You do, though, because you've been grafted in to the olive tree. Okay? You are Hebraic, whether you like it or not. That's, it's just the way it is. because they are God's people, the church is God's people, and Paul distinctly says that we have been grafted in to our Jewish brothers and sisters. And so whether we, whether we want to go that route or not, that's up to you. But it's something to consider. God, yes, gave these feasts to Israel, but he indicates that, number one, they will be perpetual, forever. And if we're grafted in and we're going to live together in the millennial and afterwards, then, maybe we ought to come to the table knowing a little bit about what's going on, rather than coming in and saying, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. It's no fun to go to a party not knowing anybody or not knowing what game they're playing. Okay, it's a lot better to to say, okay, I know what's going on here. I know what's coming. Okay, so I want to look specifically at the 3 feasts that are coming, but today I want to give you a kind of an overview and look at the 4 that occur at Passover. Okay, now the Bible tells us in Leviticus 23. Verse 4 says, "These are the appointed times of the Lord, holy convocations, which you shall proclaim at the times appointed for them." So God says, hey, there are appointed times. They happen here, 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 here. Okay? They are what the Bible calls holy convocations. In other words, church. Okay, it's a gathering, holy assembly, which is what we do. We have church. Well, that's a holy convocation. Okay, God says there are appointed ones that do occur. For instance, we celebrate Christmas. Some even have Thanksgiving services on Thanksgiving Day. To start the day off. We do resurrection, which we unfortunately call Easter. So we have appointed convocations, holy convocations. So does Israel, because God has given them to them. Now, let me say this. I'm left-handed, okay? Go lefties. I'll say this with fear and trepidation, but it's possible God's left-handed. And now hear me out. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but let me show you some things. The Jews for Jesus came up with a song at one time that says, "I knew Jesus before he was a Gentile." Okay? God is Jewish. He's the one that set up the Jewish people. He's the one that gave them their language, all these feasts, everything. So in a sense, I can say there's a left-handed rule that we need to consider, and that is not everything is Greekish or the way we think as Christians. God was Jewish before he was Gentile, and it's we that have made him that way. We've got to see what is going to happen based on the fact that they are going to happen based on the Jewish calendar, not on what we think. I think we're going to be surprised. And we're going to look at this a little bit. God created the Jewish culture. God created everything, and he says, and it was evening and morning. We don't say that. To us, the day starts when the sun comes up. Not for our Jewish brothers and sisters. The day starts when the sun goes down. If you'll go back and read Genesis 1, you'll see God says, and it was evening and it was morning the first day. Okay? So God's way of thinking is a little different from ours. He created the Hebrew language, and the Hebrew language reads backwards to what we do. In other words, Hebrew sentences start on the right and go left, which would make sense if you're left-handed because it'd be easier to write it out without smearing the ink. Okay? That's one reason why I say God's left-handed. He created the feasts, and that's what we're going to look at, and he gave them to our Hebraic brothers and sisters. He said, and we're going to see this, that they will be celebrated forever. So it's not just something that we can pass off as just being, yeah, that's what they do. No, 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 no. We're going to do this. I believe that we're going to do this. He gave us the Hebrew language, which is, you see, we put together letters to form words, and then they mean something. You know, an A in our alphabet is an A. It means nothing else. Not so with the Hebrew language. A, which is Aleph, has a meaning. Every letter, and they only have 22 letters, every letter has a meaning. So even when the letter stands by itself, it can have a meaning. The Hebrew thought concept is four-dimensional, where our Western concept is only two. God's ways are so different. God is the one that set up redemption through his son Yeshua, and we looked at that. So the left-hand rule is this: hey, let's look at things from God's perspective rather than ours. Because we may not be totally right. We may be looking out in right field when the ball is over in the left field, okay? You know, I think we're going to see this, especially as we start to look at these last three feasts, because of where they sit and what God has already done. Martin Luther said this. This was interesting. He said, the Hebrew language is the best language of all. If I were younger, I would want to learn this language because no one can really understand the scriptures without it. For although the New Testament is written in Greek, it is full of Hebraism and Hebrew expressions. Okay, I got to quit there. I've been given the signal. It's time for a break. Yay! Okay, that's enough. All right, let's take a break, and I'll be right back.